first episode of Witchy Shadow Work, which is now happening through YouTube instead of Vimeo, because Vimeo's a hoe. This is essentially just for my Patreon content, doing this video to give context to what is being posted in there. Do we have any kind of professional setup for this whatsoever? No, we do not. Are we going to proceed anyway? Yes. Yes, we are. When it comes to shadow work, we often understand it kind of in the context of the things about ourselves that have been repressed, often associated with Carl Jung and the whole like psychoanalysis, where you go into your subconscious, things that you kind of perceive as being undesirable, or you just don't feel comfortable expressing, things you don't feel safe expressing about yourself, for any number of reasons. There's actually a very specific area I want to delve into for this video, and that is operant or classical conditioning. What this has to do with shadow work is that operant conditioning, as well as your cognitive processes, because as we understand today, we often have cognitive behavioral therapy or psychology. What you've got now is we're going to be looking at the operant conditioning part of it, because that plays a huge part in how we develop, how we grow as people, and that plays into shadow work itself. Now, operant conditioning in a very simple, simplified terms is like punishment and reward systems. Basically an aversive or pleasurable stimulus added or taken away from your environment in order to influence your behavior. For example, if you see a small child acting up, you might tell them that, well, they're going to receive a punishment either in the form of like an aversive stimulus added to their environment that they're not going to like or enjoy, or possibly the loss of a pleasurable stimulus, such as, okay, you don't get dessert after supper tonight if you continue behaving in the way that you're behaving. Now, aversive or pleasurable stimulus can also be social rewards as well. Now that ties into like shadow work, because those things that we don't like about ourselves may have been pushed back out of conditioning. This can mean these things about yourself that you know will not receive any kind of reward from your environment, or if you express it, you might actually get an aversive response. You may experience a loss of social rewards. You can also experience a loss of relationships if these things about yourself are things that you perceive or you know will not be accepted by the people in your environment. So there's a number of things that the people around us, our society, the people groups, this can be anywhere from like church, school, your workplace, any of these things around you that may not be acceptable. This could just be things about your lifestyle. They may be, a huge one is often associated with, well, being part of the LGBTQ plus community. A lot of these things out there that our general society here in North America does not necessarily look on very fondly, depending on where you live and what power structure you may be existing under. As the psychology field has grown, we've come to discover that punishment systems can often backfire. Through TikTok, I kind of did a little of my own kind of like, I kind of like, what do you call a stitch challenge? And I asked people to basically be like, what was something that you were praised for as a kid, but was actually an indicator that you weren't okay? And what came back was a whole bunch of people basically saying like, I'm neurodivergent and I experienced praise for these things in which I was not getting the support that I needed, or a punishment was applied to me, but it actually meant a need was not being met. We're discovering many instances now where punishment or aversive stimulus application to something happening to you in your life actually backfired and it wasn't helpful, but because of cognitive biases from like friends, family, or religious systems, these aversive stimulus or even pleasurable rewards for things about yourself that you necessarily were just like, no, that's not really me, the actual self, who I really am, is not really acceptable to you. For example, even just following a pagan witchy path, a lot of us receive some blowback from that, some aversive stimulus in the form of critique, loss of relationship, that sort of thing. If you want to look further into operant conditioning, I'll put links for the research and all that in the description below. But for shadow work specifically, what you're going to be considering is what type of conditioning may have been applied to your life, be it the application of rewards for your behavior or the application of negative stimulus to your environment in order to kind of build the person you are today from the people around you. And this would have started from childhood. It includes processes such as socialization. So as you move forward through your own shadow work, what you're going to be looking for is what things were applied to my life that influenced my behavior as I grew up and became the person who I am today, and that would essentially influence my perception of the world and what I consider to be acceptable or unacceptable or safe or unsafe to express about myself.